Hey everyone! Tonight we're starting with something a little darker. A world of plagues, punishments, and endlessly boiling pottage. We're going to sink into what everyday life was actually like in the Middle Ages. Forget the neat castles and shiny armor that Hollywood keeps feeding you. In reality, you probably wouldn't survive even a single day. Before you settle in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I create. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. It's always strange and fascinating to see people tuning in from all over the world. Now dim the lights. Maybe switch on a fan for that soft, steady hum in the background. Let's slide gently into tonight's trip together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1325. Good news, you're alive. Bad news, so is everything else that bites. Your bed is a half-rotten straw mattress, stuffed with hay and a thriving ecosystem of insects. It smells like a barn floor, mostly because it was a barn floor about 3 months ago. There's no memory foam, no ergonomic pillows, absolutely no Egyptian cotton. Just a single rough wool blanket that hasn't been washed since last winter and now weighs about as much as a small cow from sweat, dirt, and who knows what else. You blink as the sound of church bells crashes through the morning air. That's your medieval alarm clock, loud, relentless, and even less forgiving than the one on your phone. Your home is a one-room wooden hut with no real windows and an open floor plan in the worst possible sense. Your family, a few animals, and an impressive collection of insects all share the same space. The smell is complicated. A thick composition of stale beer, human sweat, damp wool, goat, smoke, and something you really hope isn't mold, even though deep down you know it absolutely is. Scented candles haven't been invented, and if they had been, they'd just melt into your dirt floor and disappear. You try to stretch and instantly regret it. The air is icy, your muscles are stiff, and your joints feel older than civilization itself. You're 22, which, in medieval terms, puts you solidly in middle age. Your spine creaks like an old, warped door, and your knees sound like a bag of rocks being shaken by a confused farmhand. Climbing out of bed is a risk. The floor is either wet from last night's rain leaking through the thatched roof, or crusted over with whatever your neighbor's chicken thoughtfully left behind. Either way, your bare feet are now officially part of the local ecosystem. As for privacy, that concept hasn't been invented yet either. Your entire family and probably a random cousin who showed up one day and just never left wakes up right next to you. There's no bedroom, no curtains, no separate space. Just one communal room, one communal smell, and one communal sense of resignation. Welcome to a typical morning in medieval Europe, where you're never truly alone, because there are always parasites, rodents, and at least 8 other human beings sharing your airspace. And this is only how the day begins. It goes downhill from here. You manage to drag yourself out of your miserable straw nest. Well done. Now nature calls. And not gently, it's yelling. This is the moment you start missing modern plumbing with an almost spiritual intensity. There is no toilet, no porcelain, no seat, no flush, not even a sulking plunger hiding in the corner. In the 14th century, going to the bathroom is part necessity, part social experiment, and occasionally a small public spectacle. If you're a peasant, your bathroom is probably a wooden bucket behind the house. It's already suspiciously full, because Uncle Woolston had a bad night with some questionable turnips. The smell could knock out a knight in full armor. You hold your breath, do what you have to do, and then comes the main event. You throw it into the street. Yes, the street. Officially, you're supposed to yell something like "Garde à l'eau." Basically, watch out below. In Old French, before dumping the contents out of a window or door. In practice, no one reacts fast enough, and absolutely nobody is surprised when a mysterious splash lands near their boots. The narrow streets and alleys are essentially open sewers. Rivers of human waste, animal droppings, food scraps, and unidentifiable fluids. You are very motivated not to look at too closely. If you live in a town lucky enough to have public latrines, congratulations. You get a slightly different kind of horror. You sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers in a cold, damp structure where privacy is a myth and ventilation is more of a rumor. You might try to make small talk, but preferably without breathing too deeply. Toilet paper does not exist. People wipe with straw, leaves, rags, moss, or, if they're in a truly luxurious mood, a scrap of wool. Sometimes they use nothing at all, which also explains why handshakes aren't exactly a thing yet. In a castle, surely it's better. Sort of. You might have a garderobe, a built-in stone or wooden seat with a hole, dropping waste straight down the castle wall or into the moat. Great idea, except enemies know about it. There are cases where attackers actually climbed in through those waste shafts. Yes, people literally invaded a fortress through the poop chute. No one wants that on their resume. So whether you're a farmhand or minor nobility, going to the bathroom in the Middle Ages is a humiliation ritual. It's cold, it's public, it's unpleasant, and occasionally it's genuinely dangerous. One bad step on a slick stone path, and you're face down in centuries of other people's bad decisions. And you still haven't even thought about brushing your teeth. We'll get there. You survived the medieval bathroom experience. You deserve a prize. Maybe a hot, comforting breakfast. Something that makes you feel human again. Too bad. This is medieval Europe. Nothing about breakfast is comforting. The morning meal, if you even get one, is a bleak affair. There are no eggs. Benedict, no bacon sizzling in a pan, no coffee bubbling away, and definitely no avocado toast. You crouch by the fire or sit at a rough table in front of a wooden bowl filled with something that looks like it lost a fight with a mud puddle. That's your daily serving of pottage. Pottage is a thick, lumpy stew made from whatever happens to be available. Grains, root vegetables, wilted greens, maybe a few beans if the universe is feeling generous. It's been simmering in the same pot for days or even weeks. New ingredients are thrown in on top of whatever's left at the bottom. It isn't so much a recipe as a long-term experiment in edible enough. Beside it, you get a chunk of bread that could double as a low-budget medieval shield. It's made from coarse rye or barley flour, often patted out with ground acorns, sawdust, or anything else that stretches it further, because wheat is basically luxury food. You don't really slice this bread. You negotiate with it. As for something to drink, there's no orange juice, no herbal tea, no oat milk latte. You're drinking beer. Yes, beer. At 6 a.m. But don't imagine a party. This is small beer, weak in alcohol, but much safer than the local water. Wells and streams are full of parasites and filth, so even children drink this thin ale. No one is thrilled about it, but at least it doesn't kill you quite as fast. Meat? Cheese? That's feast day material. Maybe on a major religious holiday, or when your lord feels unusually generous, you'll see a bit of bacon, or some cheese. Most peasants eat meat only a few times a year. Fresh fruit is rare and seasonal. If it's not being fermented into wine or cider, it's rotting. Spices are basically fantasy objects. A tiny pouch of pepper could cost more than a month's wages. Salt is valuable enough to lock up. So you gnaw your gritty bread, spoon your tired pottage, sip your weak beer, and try not to think about the rat that might have sampled your food before you woke up. Breakfast doesn't energize you, it simply happens to you. Properly underfed, you now get to spend the rest of your day working as if your life depends on it, because it does. You've survived the bed, the bucket, and the boot-flavored breakfast. Next comes getting dressed. Not that it improves anything. Your entire wardrobe consists of one outfit. Exactly one. A rough woolen tunic or a linen shift that you've worn almost every day for months, maybe years. There's no changing your look with the seasons. There's just keep wearing this until it rots off your body or infects it. Underwear is optional. If you're fortunate, you have a thin linen undertunic. If not, you're going fully commando under coarse, scratchy wool. The whole thing was stitched together by someone who had a vague idea of how clothing is supposed to work and no access to YouTube tutorials. There are no washing machines, no gentle detergent, no dry cleaner. Your clothes are stiff with sweat, smoke, grease, and mud, and they smell like a compost pile that's been aging beside a pigsty. Even if you want to wash them, it's a project. You have to haul water from a well, or river, Heat it over a fire, scrub your garments on a board using ashes or lye, then hang them to dry in the sun, which may decide to show up 3 days out of the year. Shoes, if you even have any, are rough leather stitched together just enough to qualify as footwear. There's zero arch support. They soak through in the rain and rub your feet raw. Many peasants just go barefoot through mud, through dung, through sharp stones, and whatever lovely diseases are chilling in the puddles. Your skin hates you for this. You itch constantly. Fleas, lice, and bed bugs are permanent residents on every human body. Everyone has them. Peasants, nobles, monks, children. You are a walking buffet. It's completely normal to scratch under your shirt with a spoon while chatting with the local priest, and nobody thinks twice about it. Your scalp is a war zone of bites. Your skin is rubbed raw from scratching. If you get a rash, too bad. There are no dermatologists, no soothing creams, and no one to tell you that it's probably scabies. You just live with it. If you're lucky, it won't get infected. If you're unlucky, that rash becomes your unwanted medieval sidekick for half a year. Wrapped in itchy fabric and the vague smell of despair, you finally step outside. Now it's time to start working yourself to death. Your job doesn't involve an office, a keyboard, or a coffee break. You don't have performance reviews or chances for promotion. If you're like about 90% of the population, your occupation is simple. Don't die while working for someone richer than you. You're a peasant. Congratulations. You work land that belongs to a lord who might not even know your name. You rise with the sun and don't stop until it disappears behind the trees. Your tools are a wooden hoe, a dull sickle, and whatever bones in your body haven't given up yet. There are no weekends, no paid holidays. Your schedule is sunrise to sunset, 6 days a week. Sunday is technically a day of rest, unless the harvest is urgent, raiders show up, or you're busy praying that your infected toe doesn't fall off. The work is brutal. Fields are plowed by hand, or with oxen if you're wealthy enough to own one. You dig, sow, weed, and haul water until your spine slowly transforms into a question mark. No one asks if you're okay. No one wonders about your mental health. If you're a woman, you get all of this plus more. You help in the fields, cook, clean, spin wool, care for children, feed animals, and pretend your husband's lice aren't migrating to your side of the bed. Children start helping as soon as they can walk without falling over. At 5 or 6, they're already out in the fields with tiny tools and huge expectations. There's no school, no toys, no cartoons, just work in the faint hope of not dying from a bad cough. If you aren't a farmer, maybe you're a blacksmith, a tanner, or a cooper. In that case, you spend your days with fire, smoke, chemicals, or animal hides in cramped, poorly ventilated workshops. The pay? Bare survival. The benefits? Burns, cuts, and a nice collection of long-term health issues. Break a bone? Tough. Get a fever? Drink warm beer and keep going. You can't afford to stop. If you don't work, you don't eat. And if you don't eat, the village will replace you without ceremony. So you grip your tools, ignore your blisters, and keep moving forward. In the Middle Ages, your career path isn't about fulfillment. It's a slow-motion endurance trial. As the sun drags itself higher into the sky, the work turns into a long, grinding blur of dirt, sweat, and aching limbs. Hours blend together. Time isn't measured by clocks, but by how badly your back hurts and how much more the field still needs from you. The earth is stubborn, the tools are crude, and your muscles burn like you've been wrestling an ox for 3 days straight. Every task demands your entire body. You bend, lift, swing, drag, and repeat until you feel like you're melting into the soil. There's no pace yourself, no ergonomic posture, no take a breather. If you slow down, you fall behind. If you fall behind, your harvest suffers. And if your harvest suffers, so does your entire family. The medieval world is unforgiving like that. One bad season can push a household from hunger into full disaster. Weather is your unpredictable boss. Too hot, and you bake under the sun without shade. Too cold, and your fingers stiffen around your tools. Too wet, and you slip through the mud while the fields drown. Too dry and the soil cracks, and your crops wither. The sky doesn't care about your deadlines. It doesn't care about your exhaustion. The weather rules everything, and it does it with zero compassion. Your hands are blistered, cracked, and dirty no matter how much you try to wipe them on your tunic. Dirt lodges under your nails permanently. Your palms are rough like old bark, and the cuts you pick up every day sting constantly. Infection is a real threat, not a distant possibility. A small wound can swell and fester, turning into a problem that makes your whole arm throb for weeks. Midday comes, not with a cheerful lunch break, but with a brief moment when you stop only because your body forces you to. You sit on the ground, legs trembling, stomach growling like an angry beast. Lunch is whatever scraps you packed in a cloth. More hard bread, a bit of leftover pottage, maybe a withered onion if you're lucky. There is no dessert, no refreshing drink, no moment of joy. Just fuel. Barely enough to keep going. And then, before you've even had time to exhale properly, the work continues. The sun climbs higher, the heat intensifies, and your clothing feels like a woolen punishment strapped to your body. Sweat drips into your eyes, stinging. Your hair sticks to your forehead. The air smells of soil, livestock, sweat, and something vaguely metallic. Maybe the taste of your own fatigue. You hear other workers nearby. You trade a few tired jokes, a few sighs, a few muttered complaints about the Lord or the weather. Humor is one of the only things you have, a small rebellion against the relentless grind. But even that fades as the hours stretch on, and your muscles turn heavy as stones. By late afternoon, your whole body pulses with a dull ache. Your shoulders throb from lifting. Your knees protest with every step. Your lower back feels like it's been replaced with a burning knot of twisted rope. You keep working anyway. There's no alternative. In the Middle Ages, survival means pushing past limits you didn't even know you had. As evening finally approaches, you gather your tools and trudge back toward the village. Your clothes are damp with sweat and streaked with dirt. Your face is sunburned. Your hands sting with every movement. You're exhausted in a way that sinks into your bones, turning your limbs into heavy, unwilling weights. But the day still isn't over. You don't walk home to relax. You walk home to start the second shift. There are animals to feed, firewood to gather, water to carry, repairs to make, and a dozen small tasks that don't care that your spine feels like it's disintegrating. You move through them automatically, half-conscious, like a puppet being dragged through the motions of life. Inside your home, the air is warm and smoky from the hearth. Children cry or bicker. Someone coughs in the corner. A neighbor might stop in to complain about a sick goat or ask for help tomorrow. There is no silence. There is no rest. The medieval household is a hive of constant activity. Dinner is as simple as breakfast and lunch, another bowl of pottage reheated from the pot that has been bubbling since last week. You dip your bread into it, ignoring how stale it's become. Hunger makes anything edible. If you're lucky, there might be a bit of cheese or a sliver of salted fish. If you're incredibly lucky, someone found a few herbs to toss into the pot, making the flavor slightly less depressing. You eat quickly, not out of enthusiasm, but because your body is desperate for calories. Conversation is quiet and tired. No one has the energy for arguments or storytelling. Eyes droop, shoulders slump. Even children fade into silence. After dinner, there's no evening entertainment. No books, no games, no screens. The only light comes from the fire, or a tallow candle that smells like burnt animal fat. You might mend a torn sleeve, scrape mud from your shoes, or just sit staring into the flames, trying to pretend your joints don't hurt as much as they do. Bedtime creeps in early, not from choice but necessity. Tomorrow will bring the same exhausting cycle, and the day after that, and the day after that, for the rest of your life. The medieval world doesn't care about burnout or personal fulfillment. It cares that you keep producing. You crawl back onto your straw mattress, the same itchy, uneven pile of hay and bugs you woke up in. Your body sinks into it with more resignation than comfort. Your clothes are still grimy. Your hair is still tangled. Your skin still burns from all the scratching. The hut grows dark and quiet, except for the soft shuffling of animals and the wheezing breath of your exhausted family. Your stomach grumbles once more before settling. Your muscles twitch from overwork. And as you close your eyes, you know exactly what tomorrow will be. The same. Maybe worse. Never easier. As sleep finally drags you under, you don't drift into some peaceful dreamscape. You simply collapse into unconsciousness like a stone dropped into a well. Your body is too drained to do anything elegant. You don't stretch out or get comfortable. You just stop. Night in the Middle Ages is almost complete darkness. No streetlights, no soft glow of electronics. Just a black, silent void outside your door, except for the occasional bark of a dog, the hoot of an owl, or the unsettling rustle of something moving in the bushes that you desperately hope is harmless. Most people here don't venture outside after sunset. Nothing good waits out there. Inside, the cold creeps in faster than the fire can fight it. The hearth smolders, but your blanket is thin and itchy, and the straw beneath you scratches through the fabric of your tunic. You curl in on yourself for warmth, sharing body heat with whoever happens to be next to you. Family, neighbor, or occasionally a goat that refuses to sleep anywhere else. Somewhere in the darkness, someone snores loud enough to shake the rafters. A baby fusses. Fleas and lice begin their nightly feast. You scratch in your sleep without even waking up, because it's simply part of life now. Like breathing, or hunger, or fear of disease. Speaking of disease, night is when the dread really settles in. You hear coughing from one side of the room. Deep, raspy, and a little too familiar. Someone in the family has been getting worse. In the medieval world, a cough isn't just a cough. It might be the start of something that could sweep through the entire household. Illness is an unpredictable shadow hanging over everyone. Eventually, the bells ring again. Morning drags you back into consciousness long before you're ready. Your body aches so severely, it feels like you aged 10 years overnight. You sit up slowly, wincing as your joints protest. There's no such thing as sleeping in. The day starts when the church says it starts. The air is cold enough to sting your throat, and you can see your own breath hanging in the dim morning light. You rub your eyes and immediately feel grit dust, hay, and whatever tiny creatures have decided to share your bed. You shake out your blanket. A small shower of straw and dead insects falls onto the floor. Completely normal. There's no breakfast waiting for you. If you want warm food, you have to start the fire again. The embers from last night are faint, but still alive, and you kneel on the floor, blowing carefully to coax them back to life. Smoke curls upward, making your eyes water, and soon the familiar earthy smell of the hearth fills the hut again. While the fire grows, you check on the family. The coughing hasn't stopped. The sick person looks pale and weak, but there's no doctor to call, no pills to take, no treatment except hope and maybe a handful of herbs. You whisper a small prayer, not because you're particularly devout, but because there's nothing else to do. Breakfast is identical to yesterday. A bowl of thick pottage reheated until it's edible. More hard bread. A swallow of weak ale. You eat quickly, not because you're in a hurry, but because the taste never improves no matter how long you stare at it. Then comes the morning routine again. Checking the animals, gathering eggs if you're lucky enough to have chickens, feeding the pigs or goats, and stepping carefully through mud, manure, and puddles that smell like a chemical experiment gone wrong. Once the chores are done, you grab your tools, still dull, still heavy, and head toward the fields. The ground is wet from last night's rain, which means today will be harder than usual. Mud clings to your feet, dragging at your steps, making every movement heavier. But it doesn't matter. The land demands work, rain or shine, sickness or health, exhaustion or despair. You're part of a cycle that starts long before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. You join the other villagers as they trudge across the fields. No one speaks much in the morning. Everyone is tired. Everyone is bracing for another endless day. You can read fatigue in the way people walk. Slow, stiff, heads low. The first hours pass in silence, except for the rhythmic sound of tools striking earth and the distant calls of birds circling overhead. Sweat begins to form despite the cold air. Your hands throb where yesterday's blisters cracked open. You keep going anyway. Stopping isn't an option. By midday, your stomach growls loudly enough to embarrass you, but you keep working until the unofficial break begins. Lunch is small, dull, and familiar. More bread, maybe some onions, and if someone traded well at the last market, a scrap of cheese. You savor that scrap like it's a royal feast. In a way, it is. The afternoon drags on. Clouds gather, promising rain. Everyone works faster, hoping to finish before the weather turns completely miserable. The wind bites at your face. Your fingers stiffen. Your tunic flaps in the cold air like a damp flag of surrender. When the first drops hit, you don't stop. Rain is an inconvenience, not a reason to rest. Soon, you're soaked, chilled, and covered in streaks of mud. Your shoes or bare feet squelch with every step. Your hair drips into your eyes. But the work continues until the sun retreats behind the horizon, granting a brief mercy. Even then, you're not finished. Evening chores wait for you at home, just as relentless as the morning ones. The animals bleat impatiently. The fire needs rekindling. The children need food. The sick need tending. When dinner arrives, it's once again a repeat of the same meal, warm but uninspiring. You eat in silence. Your jaw moves out of habit, not hunger. Your body feels heavy, worn, and older than your actual age. The fire crackles weakly as people settle onto their straw beds. Your mind drifts, not toward dreams, but toward small hopes. Maybe the weather will be better tomorrow. Maybe the harvest will be decent this year. Maybe no one else will fall ill. You lie down, close your eyes, and let darkness swallow you again. Another day in the Middle Ages has ended. Tomorrow will be nearly identical. Because here, life isn't about thriving. It's about enduring. Days in the Middle Ages don't feel separate from each other. They merge into a long, grey ribbon of repetition, each one shaped by the same hunger, the same exhaustion, the same labor that chews through your strength a little more every sunrise. It's not that you forget what day of the week it is. You simply stop caring. The sun rises, you work. The sun sets, you collapse. Everything else is decoration. Yet every so often, a small disruption breaks the monotony. A festival, a market day, a rumor from a traveler, or, more often, a new source of trouble. This morning begins with one of those disruptions. You wake up to raised voices outside. Not angry, but tense. Curious, you pull yourself from the straw, groaning as your spine resists, and step outside into the chilly morning air. A small group of villagers has gathered near the well. They're whispering about something, pointing towards the road. A man has arrived, dusty, tired, and leading a thin horse with a limp. A traveler. People tense whenever someone new enters the village. It's not friendliness or fear of strangers. It's fear of what they might be carrying. Visitors bring news, but they also bring sickness. He claims he's come from a town several miles away. It burned. Not all of it, but enough. A fire started in a bakery and jumped from house to house like a living creature. Dozens of families lost everything. The villagers listen with grim faces. Fire is one of the great terrors of this time. No easy way to stop it. No organized response, just prayer and hope that the wind changes direction. Then he says something worse. A sickness has broken out near the river in his region. People struck by sudden fever, swelling, and dark spots on the skin. The symptoms echo something everyone fears. Plague. Not necessarily the plague, but bad enough to make a shiver run through the crowd. You feel a knot tighten in your stomach. In the Middle Ages, illness travels faster than rumors. The traveler is welcomed with caution-offered water, but kept at a distance. Some villagers make the sign of the cross. Others quietly step away, worried he's brought death with him. After the commotion fades, life grudgingly continues. You have chores to do, tools to gather, tasks piling up like firewood before winter. You return to them, but the weight of what you heard sticks to your thoughts like wet mud. You check on your family. The coughing hasn't stopped, though at least it hasn't worsened. You're relieved, but the traveler's words linger. Swelling, fever, dark patches. You silently study the faces around you, looking for any sign of danger. That's the kind of paranoia everyone lives with. Survival depends on noticing the smallest change. Work begins as usual. You trudge back to the fields, gripping your tools, trying not to think about sickness creeping toward your village. Every step feels heavier than yesterday. Every task feels more fragile, as if the entire routine could shatter at any moment with the arrival of a single cough that sounds wrong. Hours pass. The rhythm of work becomes a distraction, monotonous but stabilizing. You fall into the same motions: digging, turning soil, checking weeds, hauling bundles of brush. Your body works even when your mind drifts. Around midday, the wind shifts. A sour smell drifts from a distant farm. Someone's livestock must have died. That's another reminder of how quickly things can collapse. A single dead cow can mean hunger for months. A disease spreading among the animals can ruin an entire community. Lunch is bleak as usual. Hard bread, a smear of leftover stew. But today it feels heavier in your mouth. Conversations are hushed. People glance toward the road from time to time, as if expecting the sickness itself to walk into the fields. When the afternoon wears on, a small incident breaks the silence. A boy from the next farm cuts his foot on a rusted tool. The wound bleeds heavily, and he cries out. His mother rushes over, trying to clean it with cold water from a nearby barrel. But everyone knows water alone won't prevent infection. The wound could swell, or darken, or fester. It's a tiny accident with the potential to turn deadly. You watch, feeling helpless. You've seen minor injuries turn into long, painful deaths. You've seen strong men rot from a simple cut. The boy is carried home, his face pale and streaked with tears. His mother walks behind him, whispering prayers. The workday ends with a chill settling over the fields as clouds gather thickly. You pack your tools and head home. Every joint aches. Your tunic is soaked with sweat and dust. Your feet feel like they belong to someone who's walked 100 miles. At home, the smell of pottage greets you. Familiar, dull, but at least warm. Tonight's batch tastes slightly different. Someone added a handful of dried herbs, a rare luxury. You savor the change, even if the meal is still as basic as always. The traveler is given a spot to rest in a shed far from the main homes. People leave him food, but avoid close contact. Safety comes before hospitality. In this world, caution is a survival strategy. As night falls, you notice the coughing from your family member sounds a little harsher. Not dramatically worse, but enough to make your muscles tense. The fire flickers, casting long shadows on the walls. You sit near the hearth, poking at the embers, wondering how far the sickness from the traveler's town has spread. Sleep comes slowly tonight. Your mind won't quiet. You lie on your straw mattress, staring into the darkness, listening to the shallow breathing around you. Every rustle or cough feels amplified. The sense of danger presses down on you like a heavy blanket. When you eventually drift into uneasy sleep, it's with one final thought lingering in your mind. In the Middle Ages, death doesn't need a reason, just an opportunity.